Steve gonna be online? I don't know. It seems like he realized that he has a grandson that he loves very much, and so for the moment he loves that more than the Zoom. Yes, and I love you very much.
Jimmy,
Your birthday
you wanna pour
girl.
some water in there?
Okay.
Good. Okay, it's hot.
Mind pouring me a glass of orange juice? Thank you.
Good orange juice, Rabbi.
Okay.
Fresh squeezed. Fresh squeeze.
You want orange juice also? You want to pour a tad for Sarah first, and then
Oh, a tad.
yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Okay. Go bring it to the kitchen. Can you hold it? Let me hold this for you. Okay. Go bring that to the kitchen. When you're done, you come back for this. And I forgot the cookies in the oven. Well, first of all, good evening to all those online on YouTube and on Zoom. Nobody on Zoom yet, but there's YouTube. And tonight's class is sponsored by Steve Horowitz in loving memory of his dear mother, Chaya Chana Bas Avram. And memory be a blessing. L'chaim, l'chaim v'lebracha. I'm gonna take the cookies out, give them a few minutes to cool off.
You put a little water in it there.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I was going to do.
It melts a spoon otherwise. It's hot.
Caution, this tray is boiling hot, fresh out of the oven.
It could be hotter than the soup.
No, it's hotter.
I hope
Hotter? Well, then wait.
Yeah, do not eat the cookies right now.
What kind of soup is that?
It's
Squash.
butternut squash and zucchini.
Oh,
Really good.
All right, you're ready for your Gatorade? Okay, you can go back inside now. All right, so tonight we are talking about the upcoming holiday of Pesach. Okay, so we're going to go through some of the basics and we'll have a chance for questions. So Pesach is about removing the chametz, removing leavened bread or any leavening agent such as yeast from our midst. That means from our food, from our possessions, and leaven represents the ego on Pesach. The idea is that we're free of the ego, as God told Moses when he told them to take the Jews out of Egypt. When you take the Jews out of Egypt, you will serve me upon Mount Sinai. Meaning to say, what is true freedom? True freedom is the ability to serve God freely. And if there's one thing internally that gets in the way of serving God properly, it is none other than our ego. As the saying goes, the more selfish we are, the less godly we are, but the more selfless we are, the closer to God we are. So that is the idea that's the symbolism behind this extinguishing of all sorts of leavening agents. And that allows us to relive the Exodus, but also to experience Exodus. In other words, freedom from our own internal oppression to be able to serve God properly. So within that process, there is the before Pesach step of the program. I want to say hi to Sarah.
Sure.
And after, and then there's during Pesach. So before Pesach, we prepare for Pesach and we remove the chametz. And during Pesach, there's what we eat, what we don't eat, and what we do at the Seder to commemorate the miracles that God did when he took us out of Egypt. So that's kind of the structure of what we're going to go through, the before Pesach, the during Pesach. So, what are some of the essentials to know before Pesach? So first of all, we need to know what the word chametz means. Chametz is any of the 5 grains, which are wheat, barley, spelt, oats, and rye. So like rye bread is chametz. And so is oatmeal. And so is spelt crackers, barley, wheat, anything of those derivatives, becomes chametz if it rises. Now, practically speaking, anything of those 5 grains is guilty until proven innocent. to borrow a phrase from the court system. In other words, any of those 5, when you buy, oh, I just bought a bag of flour in Smart and Final, that's kosher. No, that's very much not kosher for Passover. If you want to cook for Passover, it either has to be shmura flour, so flour that was washed, and which you can't really get in the store regularly, or you can buy matzah meal, and that's fine. You can cook with that. Some have a custom, not even matzah doesn't touch water. We're not getting into that now. So if you want to cook with wheat flour, it has to have already been cooked, thereby stopping the process of rising of leavening. So that means all crackers are no bueno. Even sometimes potato chips or corn chips have inside of them, one of the ingredients is wheat flour, right? Now, when it comes
yeast, it'll say it right on there.
Oh, yeast, absolutely.
What's
Now-
yeast made out of?
Yeast, I don't know, but I do know that it causes leavening and is therefore prohibited.
Yeah, I
Prohibited.
know.
It's an organism.
Right, it's a living organism of sort, right?
Oh.
Yeah.
Baking powder and baking soda.
Yeah, those as well. You can't use those on Passover.
But what actually ties all of this stuff to the ego? I don't get, I mean, I understand what you
Well,
said,
because
but
when bread, so first of all, in general, it's important to understand that when it comes to the Torah and its commandments, we don't do them only when they fit into the box of our own logic, right? We do strive to understand them, and that's why I led with this concept of the ego and deflating the ego. But ultimately, we don't eat chametz on Pesach because there's a very clear commandment in the Torah: "Thou shalt not eat chametz," or seor. Seor means a leavening agent, like yeast, throughout Pesach. So the truth of the matter is, one can feel very restricted and, almost like in servitude to this law, and feel very stressed out by it, or one can choose to buy in, so to speak, to really lean into that message behind it and make it more meaningful. That's up to us, really. But yes, generally speaking, the idea of something that's leavened is representing the ego, which rises. The idea is, what's the ego? The ego isn't a true recognition of our greatness, right? The ego is, there's us, and then there's a bunch of air inside. And so that inflates what's actually there into something greater than reality, right? So the idea is we need to be more in touch with our reality. It says Moses was the most humble man on the face of the earth. Now you're going to say, so what does that mean? Moses was like, in bread terms, was he a flat cracker? No, he was a thick, hard, coarse, dense block of dough. Meaning he had no ego. He had no emptiness in him, but he was very much aware of who he was and what his capabilities and his gifts were, right? Which, by the way, I always like to bring this in when it comes to Jewish pride. It's not a false sense of ego of like, oh, look at me, honor me for nothing that I did, but actually it's recognizing the fact that God chose us to be His chosen people, whether we deserve it or not. But that's where choice comes in. That's it's beyond reason sometimes, and we go with that. Yeah.
When you say they were commanded, or it is a commandment, at what point was this command given prior to leaving that night out of Egypt?
It's in Exodus chapter 12. It goes
Well, I don't
into,
mean that, but like days before or the night
it
of?
was, no, they were commanded it on the first day of the month. So 2 weeks before they left Egypt. So the same paragraph where they're told, tie a lamb to your bedpost and keep it there for 4 days and then slaughter it. Along with that, the continuation of that paragraph is and then roast it and eat it together with your family, but make sure your belt is tied, your shoes are on, your stick's in your hand. You put your luggage tag on your carry-on baggage, and you're ready to go. So that's really that's where it comes from.
Okay.
Yeah. So now there's something very unique with the laws of Passover and its food. Jews are famous for the laws of kosher, and everybody knows that Jews don't eat pork and shellfish and a whole slew of other things that we're not allowed to eat. But the truth of the matter is that except for mixtures of milk and meat, the prohibition is against eating the food. So, for example, if I own a gas, let me clarify that. Can you wait a second? If when it comes to milk and meat, I'm not only not allowed to eat it, I'm also not allowed to cook it, and I'm not allowed to sell it or benefit from it. Okay, because the Torah says 3 times, do not cook a kid in its mother's milk.
That being said,
Yeah.
if I am standing at your kitchen sink,
Mm-hmm.
the right side of the sink is for meat. The left side is for dairy.
That's right.
And when you have fish, you go on the meat.
No, fish can go either on the meat side or the dairy side.
And then what about the fruits and vegetables?
Also, either on the meat or the dairy.
Go either or.
Yeah.
That was it.
Go talk to mommy. Yeah. So when it comes to other prohibitions of kosher, so for example, if I'm selling, I don't know, meat sticks in a gas station, right? Assuming I'm not like selling it in a place where there's Jews frequenting my gas station and I'm making them eat non-kosher. But let's say it's an area where there's no Jews or majority non-Jewish, like here in Arcadia, and I own a gas station. I'm allowed to sell that. That's okay. Because I'm not marketing it to the Jewish community. I'm allowed to make money off that as much as I can make money off plants, off houses, off boats, off oil, whatever. Doesn't matter. Business. It's okay. Now, when it comes to Passover, however, the Torah tells us specifically we're not allowed to, it says, lo yera'eh velo yimatzeh. It cannot be seen and it cannot be present in your property. That's how severe the prohibition of chametz is. So what that means is, so you use the same example, and that's because I actually just put up a mezuzah at a gas station at Longden and Peck Road just this afternoon.
Cool.
Jewish owner there. So by the way, support the Arco gas station at the Longden and Peck Road. It's technically Irwindale, but it's basically the edge of Arcadia.
Okay, oh, I know that.
Yeah. So when it comes to Passover, however, you're not allowed to own any chametz throughout Passover. Now, what do you do in such a situation? It's like, what are you supposed to like transfer your gas station to kosher for Passover? Oh, good. Give it away. That would be nice. But in the real world, people don't just give away gas stations every year, right? Do you know anybody who would give away their gas station? Like, hey, it's been nice. It's been real. Sorry, we're going to have to call it quits. No more, no more business this year. So what we do is we're allowed to sell our chametz and rent the space where the chametz is present to a non-Jew throughout Pesach. Okay. Now that doesn't only work for somebody who owns a gas station. That works for somebody who has maybe a little bit of alcohol left in his cabinet and doesn't want to finish it before Passover, which I don't encourage drinking just because there's something in the bottle. Never a good idea. So then you sell your chametz to a Gentile. And by the way, today you could even do that. Yes, there's a whole formal verbiage on how to sell the chametz and what it includes, what it doesn't include. But the bottom line is to make it completely seamless and simple. You go to our website, jewisharcadia.com/chametz. And over there, you fill out a form that authorizes a rabbi in this time zone to sell the chametz on your behalf. And so what you need to do is you cover your liquor cabinet and whatever other chametz you have for 8 days, or actually 8.5 days, because the sale takes place actually Wednesday morning. If you look on the calendar, you'll see it says you need to eat chametz. You may eat chametz until I'm gonna guess around
10 or 11.
10:50 a.m. Here, let me actually look it up real quick. I don't know. Okay. Now the YouTube is playing double.
That he has a grandson that he loves very much.
JewishArcadia.com/times. Now I'm hearing myself double.
Double song.
Okay, so let's go to April 1st, which is the eve of Passover, the morning before Passover. So you have to finish eating chametz by 10:49 a.m. Oh, I was close. I was off by 1 minute. And you need to sell and burn the chametz before 11:52 a.m. So what that means is, on Wednesday morning, you can have your bagels, lox, and cream cheese for breakfast. Just make sure you're done by 10:49 a.m. But what if you're like, oh my gosh, I got a half a dozen bagels here. I can't possibly finish this. So either you stick it in your chametz freezer, a freezer that's designated to be sold to the non-Jew. And so you put it in there and you make sure in advance of that time. You don't have to wait till Wednesday morning. Already today, tonight, even right now, you could go online and sell your chametz. Authorize the sale of chametz in advance so that it should take place on Wednesday morning. And then you put all your chametz in that designated area and it's sold. So like in our case, we actually block off our whole kitchen here because we're only here one night of Passover and we get it catered from outside. So we just block off the whole kitchen. I cover up a few shelves where I have food in the garage, and I put like a blue painter's tape on it, and I write chametz so it's clear that it's sealed off for that, and then you're done. So once that's done, then there's also a custom to burn some chametz. So many people have a custom. I think I'm jumping ahead. Before we get to the burning of the chametz, so here's a practical thing. Fortunately, we have two large refrigerators. We have one in the house, one in the garage. So the refrigerator in the house, we're gonna just block off, and it's gonna be sold. The refrigerator in the garage, I already had it cleaned out. There's nothing in there except for kosher for Passover yogurts. So it's all kosher for Passover. Okay. Now, since most people don't necessarily have two refrigerators, what you need to do is you need to either take all the condiments from year round and spill them out, get rid of them before Wednesday morning and clean out your fridge. Or you can cover the entire area in the fridge. If you have certain things that's like, oh, I can't just get rid of all of this, it's just cost prohibitive. Then you just set aside one shelf in your fridge, cover it, make sure it's not visible, because it can't be present in your property, and it also can't be visible. So you have to cover it. And essentially in the sale of chametz, you're renting out that shelf in the refrigerator to the non-Jew that he theoretically can access it over Pesach if he wants. Now, here's how it works. This is not some sort of loophole. This is actually a legal sale, and that's why we don't go to our next door neighbor and say, "Hey, you want to buy my chametz?" and then let's do a little hocus pocus. In 8 days, I'll buy it back from you. No. there's a whole contract that the rabbi writes out with the Gentile that basically stipulates that if he wants, he can go into your cabinet, into your refrigerator that's designated as chametz, and he can take out a pack of saltines or whatever else is not kosher for Passover, and he can't eat it in your house because it's your house; it can't be seen. But he can take it, say goodbye, and you'll be like, all right, I'll send you an invoice for $2.99 for those saltines, and he already pre-Passover agreed to pay fair market value for whatever he takes.
Well, why can't you get it back after Passover's over?
So you could, and that's usually what happens. But the point is that we have to understand that this is not some just, oh, let's just sign a paper and then pretend that we sold it. No, we did actually sell it, and that means that he does have the legal right to go into your property with your permission if he has to walk through your property, but that you will give him permission to access his closet or his designated area of chametz, and he can take whatever he wants, eat it, and then the agreement is that he doesn't have to pay it all up front. Only if he eats it does he have to pay you for it. So that's how it works.
And keep in mind, this even applies to your toaster.
Yes.
Yes.
So that's another thing. And I want to clarify.
Go ahead.
I want to clarify something very important. The laws of Passover are very extensive. I have a few books here, but there's many more. And the main thing is that we should try each year to be more scrupulous, a little bit more meticulous than we were last year. So that's really what it's about. Now, to your point, yes, when it comes to Passover food, any dishes or any utensils that have cooked food in them are also quote unquote contaminated and therefore cannot be used for Passover. Now, there's a solution to that, which is you can kosherize your utensil. Now, let's just talk about metal, for example. The way you kosherize metal utensils, unless it's a frying pan, which is like heat on heat, but anything that you cooked in with metal, you need to dip it in a big pot of boiling water, one that's bigger than whatever utensil we're discussing, and you kosherize it for Passover that way. Now, to make things easier for you, Chabad of Pasadena is offering this Sunday evening from 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. a free koshering service where you can bring your pots, your I don't know if they're doing pans because that you need a blowtorch. That's a little more intense. But your silverware, anything that's used throughout the year that you want to use for Passover, whatever items you need, a knife, preferably if it's a one block of metal, because when it comes to a plastic holder, then it's kind of two separate things. It gets a little more, anything that's plastic is a little more challenging to kosherize because both plastic and say ceramic are items that if exposed to too high heat, they'll get damaged. So anything that isn't safe in high heat cannot be properly koscherized for Passover because it cannot withstand the high heat that's required to kosherize something. Does that make any sense?
We were talking about the chocolate last year in Pasadena.
Mm-hmm.
That guy, the one rabbi that spoke said that he was at that chocolate factory several years.
Oh, right.
When,
Rabbi Hanukkah's brother.
Yeah, when they make that chocolate and someone asked the question, do you use boiling water to do that? And he says, no, we cannot because it'll mess up all the machines, but it's pretty hot. So
interesting.
yeah, so they had to tone it down a little because it might damage the machines. But
right, but it's right, and I think he said something like they do it at 190 degrees or something.
Something like that, but they go through that whole factory with the fine-tooth comb and
right. But also, I think he mentioned something like in places where there's higher altitude, the boiling point is a lower temperature, and those. Maybe I'm conflating two things.
Yeah, I only heard him speak because that was the question. So.
Because the chocolate only reaches that temperature, they can kosherize it at that temperature, but but it has to reach a boil. So they do it only in an area where it's high altitude that it'll boil at, let's say, 190 instead of 212. You see, here's the thing. When it comes to boiling water, right, there's the scientific element and there's the Jewish law element. Jewish law doesn't say 212 Fahrenheit. 2,000 years ago, they weren't measuring in Fahrenheit or Celsius, right? But the Jewish law says that you have to boil it in water. Now, boil, we know what boil means. There's bubbles popping up in the water. So now, with modern science, we know that there's a number for that. On regular ground level, that's 212 degrees Fahrenheit. And the challenge is when you have equipment that cannot reach that temperature because it'll damage the equipment, how do you kosherize something like that? So they found not a loophole, but a solution that if you bring said utensil to a higher altitude, you can reach the boiling point, which fulfills the halachic Jewish law requirement of boiling, but yet you're not damaging the equipment by taking it beyond, say, 190 or whatever it is that's necessary.
What would you do with a toaster? You can't boil a toaster.
No, you just move it into hiding and you say,
Right.
this is
Right,
belongs
right,
to a
give it-
utensil.
Well,
Give
so
it to your neighbor or something.
or you put it in that cabinet with all the other
Like what I did one
Comment.
year was just said, this thing is so messy, I'll just replace it.
That's what some
Get a
people
brand
do,
new.
and that's why pre-Passover is a great time for spring cleaning. You're like, you know what, this toaster has been giving me problems. It's time to throw it out, recycle it, and I'm going to buy a new one and only use it for Passover.
Yeah.
And then after Passover, I'll continue to use it, as I please. So, the point is like this: when you go home tonight, or maybe when you wake up tomorrow morning, and you're like, how do I go about selling my chametz? Just first of all, just sell it, and then put whatever you can away in an area. And even if you don't manage to do it perfectly, even if you don't manage to get every single last pot and pan into that closet, whatever, okay, at least you sold that closet, whatever it might be. And that's already, doing Passover better. Now, once you have your chametz sold, Tuesday night is really, even though Passover starts Wednesday night, Tuesday night is when you should really be more or less chametz free. Like by then you should have cleaned your cars, cleaned, if you're somebody who eats in your car because you have a commute or whatever, or you have kids and car seats, all that should be done before Tuesday night. You should figure out where you're gonna put that chametz. Really, all of that should be put away. Now, do you have to start eating kosher for Passover food Tuesday night? No, you can set aside dinner for Tuesday night. You can set aside breakfast for Wednesday morning. Obviously put it somewhere responsibly where it's not, you're not gonna, get it mixed up with the Passover food. But Tuesday night, that's when you're supposed to be able to say, okay, I'm ready for Passover. Now I'm gonna do one final check. And so Tuesday night, we take a candle and a feather. The idea of a feather is because the Mishnah tells us we're supposed to look even in the cracks. This is before it became standard procedure that everybody sells their chametz, and people would have cracks in their walls, and so you have to take the feather and do that. But we still keep that custom to take the feather along with the search, and also because you might not find any, because we're not allowed to benefit from the chametz. In other words, we're not allowed to even benefit from a log of chametz burning in the fire, right? If you have a French, what's it called, the French bread, a baguette burning in the fire, right? That's fuel for the fire, and you're going to stand near the fire. Theoretically, you can benefit from the warmth of the fire, which is created by the bread. So therefore, the custom is to take a spoon or something wood and use that as part of the search of the chametz. So that's where the custom came from, that we use a fire, a feather, so we can get in the cracks and sweep up any dust. Not dust. Dust is not chametz. Any crumbs, of chametz, and a wooden spoon so that, well, it could also assist with the sweeping, but also so that we have something other than chametz to burn in the fire the following morning. Now, there's a custom from the Arizal, a Kabbalistic custom that has become very widespread. I wouldn't say in all Jewish circles, but definitely very common, to put out 10 pieces of bread before Tuesday night. Obviously, they should be wrapped in paper or something so the crumbs don't get everywhere. But you put them throughout your house, and then you search for chametz. This is not just lahavdil egg hunt or a bread hunt, but this is actually a way to remind you of the mitzvah of searching for chametz. So it's also a good opportunity to think, oh, I actually didn't check my sock drawer where I usually keep my chocolates, just for emergencies. Maybe some of those chocolates have chametz in there, right? So because we're going around the whole house with the candle and checking everywhere, it's a good opportunity to be like, oh yeah, I should get rid of that. I should either eat that tonight for my second dinner, or tomorrow for breakfast, or sell it to the non-Jew, or maybe just throw it in the trash if it's expired or whatever.
But basically just dealing with these, 5 grains, right?
Yes.
Okay, so when it comes to like cottage cheese, it's okay,
Cottage cheese is not chametz.
right?
Now, again, it could be cooked in a facility. It could be produced in a facility that is chametz, and therefore all produced food should have kosher for Passover certification on the product. Or if there's a kosher agency that has a list available online that says these and these products are kosher for Passover. For example, Colgate toothpaste. I believe there's don't quote me on this, but I think the OK and the CRC and different koshering organizations will put out a list of various products that are completely fine for Passover, even though there's no certification on your Colgate toothpaste, But and I say toothpaste because deodorant doesn't need Passover certification, because anything that is not worthy of eating, even for a dog, is not something you have to be concerned about. So you don't have to worry about, is my shampoo I can't see chametz. I can't see, I can't be in my possession. Your shampoo is fine. Your deodorant is fine. That doesn't fall under the category of food, because no human nor animal is going to eat that. So, but when it comes to toothpaste, where you're actually putting it in your mouth, that's something where you should look out for. Is that something that's kosher for Passover or not?
It's in a deodorant and you use it, you're benefiting from it.
Right, but it has left the category of food, because nobody can eat that.
I'm not consuming it, taking.
I mean, sometimes when I'm hungry, I take a little bite of my.
Especially the chewy kind, the creamy kind.
I like the chewy kind because it's less messy. Anyway.
What do you do about kitty?
About like cat food? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, is there like kosher for Passover?
It's a good question. I thought about it, because actually my neighbors were out of town for a few weeks. They were traveling until 2 days ago. They came back, and we were feeding their cat while they're away. And I was thinking, like, at least I don't have that question practically, because they're coming back before Passover. But I don't know the answer. I'll have to let you know what the story is. To the best of my knowledge, again, don't quote me on this, but to the best of my knowledge, I believe there are some animal foods that are kosher for Passover, and if it's in your property and you're looking after the animal, then you should get that, or see if you can get somebody to dog sit or cat sit while you're celebrating
So
Passover.
the animals are not exempt from these rules.
The animal is exempt, but you're not. And if you have the
But I'm
bag of
not
food,
consuming it,
no, but it's still in your possession and it is food.
but not for humans.
Yeah, but even if the rule is, if it's not even fit for animals, then it's not food. But if it's food that's for animals, then that's also considered food. as far as humans are concerned. Yes. So
That's pretty strict.
it is.
Yeah.
It is. You don't. Your animal food does not have to be kosher year round, but
Just for 8 days.
for 8 days you got. So either now that doesn't mean that you're a cat who's so let's say my neighbor, they have a cat. Does that mean that the cat can't come into my backyard and hang out here? No, that's fine. It's inside. We're good. We're not. It doesn't go that far. But if they were asking me to feed that cat, that would be a challenge, because I wouldn't be able to. I wouldn't be able to keep the food here, and I wouldn't even be able to
Handle it.
go handle it even in their property. Yeah. Okay. So the morning of Passover, the morning before Passover, what time is it now? Okay, it's 8:12. We still have some time. The morning before Passover, which is this year Wednesday morning, you can eat chametz up until 10:49 a.m. over here. Now, growing up in Montreal, sometimes that time was like maybe if it was before daylight, we changed the clock. So sometimes it was like 9:30, and I remember my father coming home with every year. It was a tradition in his shul. They had bagels and lox every pre-Passover, and only those kids who got up early enough got the lox, because there usually wasn't a lot left. There was usually some bagels left, but not a lot of lox left. And we would munch that down together with the cheese bagels and whatever. But there was a cutoff. Once the time comes, you can't eat. The reason for that is, why are we so crazy? Why at 10, 11 o'clock in the morning are we worried about, the holiday that's coming tonight? And the answer is, Passover is different. Why is this night different than other nights, right? Well, Passover is different in more ways than one. One of them is that the Passover sacrifice is actually not brought on Passover. It's brought the day before Passover. And the rule is, as the Torah tells us, you cannot have chametz present when you slaughter the Passover sacrifice. The Passover sacrifice was brought after noon on the eve of Passover. So noon would be 12:56. Again, noon is calculated between sunrise and sunset, kind of the middle. So that would be 12:56. Sunrise that day is 6:39, and sunset is 7:13. So 12:56 is noon. So that would be the time and please God, the third temple should be rebuilt by Wednesday, long before, and we'll all be bringing our Passover lambs in Jerusalem. So that'll be at 12:56 p.m. or whatever time that is in Jerusalem, right? So then chametz has to be goodbye, gone, out of here. Now, the rabbis realized that Jews like to be last minute, and we're always running down to the wire. So they said, you know what? From an hour before, which is 11:52, because the day is a little more than 12 hours, right? So it's an hour and 4 minutes. 11:52, you cannot own any chametz. It has to be sold, burnt, something. You can't have it. Now, they realized that even that needs another precaution when it comes to eating the chametz. So they said an hour before that, you have to stop eating. And then you have, oh, I forgot to lock up the cabinet. I forgot to sell it to the non-Jew. I need to burn the 10 pieces. All those like other things other than eating, you still have an hour buffer. So 10:49, you stop eating chametz. 11:52, you have to sell or burn your chametz, meaning then or beforehand. And then you can peacefully get ready for Pesach. Please God, when the temple's rebuilt, we'll actually bring the Passover lamb. Otherwise, you can start setting the table. You can take a shower, whatever else you need to do to get ready for the holiday.
But of course, this is all in preparation for leaving
Leaving.
Egypt,
That's right.
that exile.
To be free. Yeah.
So this is where we're going with this, okay?
Yeah.
We're all on the same page here.
Absolutely. So we all know what we don't eat on Passover. We don't eat chametz. Now, there is a custom amongst Ashkenazi Jews, meaning Jews who come from countries other than, say, North Africa, Spain, Iraq, in the Middle East, basically European Jews, have a custom to not eat kitniot. Kitniot are things that historically either were confused with grains or were cooked or were harvested together with grains. So legumes like beans, things like that, corn, rice, are all prohibited to Ashkenazi Jews. Again, this is a rabbinic prohibition, but most importantly, of course, is the 5 grains. So again, what I want to reiterate: do it better than you did it last year. So start with the 5 grains, and we can also work on the kitniot. Now, that's about what we don't eat. What we do eat, however, is matzah. Now, it's interesting that the obligation to eat matzah is only on the Seder night. Or actually, yeah, the Seder night, or outside of Israel, both Seder nights. But the rest of Passover, you can go gluten-free. You know, you can go grain-free. You don't have to eat matzah every day of Passover. There's no obligation to do that. In fact, the one food item, more than say your tuna fish, that is most likely to have chametz is matzah, because who's putting grain in tuna fish, right? Like, how's it even going to get into the can, right? But when it comes to matzah, you have to make sure that it was actually baked within 18 minutes, didn't have a chance to rise, and so on and so forth. So, not
my 2 favorite matzah recipes are a peanut butter and jelly matzah sandwich.
I thought you were going to say flour and water and flour.
And the other matzah one is tuna mayonnaise matzah sandwich. Both of those are really good.
There you go. So the thing is, I think anyways, your family is of Sephardic origin, but peanuts fall into the category of legumes, because peanuts are not nuts. There's nuts. Nuts are one category, and there's a lot of nuts. Sometimes many of us go nuts on Passover. But peanuts for Ashkenazis are not allowed.
Are or not?
Are not.
Oh,
I don't think peanuts was actually in the diet of Ashkenazi. It's more of a
Well, it's considered a
different
legume.
world. Yeah, it's a legume anyway.
So it's a legume, and therefore,
that's what I'm eating. They're good.
okay.
Good man, Joe.
Now let's just talk about some of the different matzahs. Okay. Heard the term shmura matzah?
Mhm.
Shmura means guarded. Okay, that means that there's different levels of guarded. There's shmura mishas kitzira, guarded since it was harvested, and there's shmura mishas tchina, guarded from when it was ground, I mean from when it was crushed, right? From when the kernels are crushed. Now, practically, when you see shmura matzah, it means from when it was harvested, because obviously there could be water. Yeah, you have to realize the biggest danger, if you will, when it comes to any grain, preparing it for Passover, is water. Now, find me a place that doesn't have water, right? Even if you're using a tractor to harvest your field, there's going to be water there somewhere. So what that means is that they have to literally take the dump truck or whatever storage utility that they have when they're harvesting all this grain, and a rabbi literally examines the inside of the truck to inspect it for water, to make sure that when you harvest the grain, no water is in there for the grain to come in contact with. And of course, needless to say, they're going to harvest it in a dry season. And therefore, many wheat fields for matzah are, for example, in Arizona, where it's very dry. But literally every step of the way, it's supervised and safeguarded to make sure that this wheat does not come into contact with water at any point, because that is like the biggest danger. It's kind of like think of, you know, when there's a hurricane and there's a down power line, they tell you do not touch water, right? That's like, you know, big no-no. So wheat or any of the 5 grains that touches water is a big no-no until after it's baked into matzah. So that's what shmura means. It means it's safeguarded. But then there's another element to make matzah ideal for the Seder. And that is a mitzvah should be done with intent. So, for example, when I make tzitzis, I don't really make tzitzis, but sometimes I tighten my tzitzis. So there's 5 knots and then some strings wound around it. But every time I tighten these knots, I'm supposed to say these words, just as a reminder. L'shem mitzvahs tzitzis, which means for the sake of the mitzvah of tzitzis, meaning any act of creating an article for a mitzvah should be done with intent, with intentionality. So, for example, just another example is when a scribe writes a Torah scroll or a mezuzah or a tefillin, he has a card in front of him in big letters that says, Hareini kotev l'shem kedusha sefer Torah. I am hereby writing for the sake of the holiness of the Torah scroll. In other words, you know, sometimes you can get caught up in the art and the act and just like, oh, you know, this is just beautiful. Like, wow, I really did a nice shin over there. And you always need to have in mind that this is for the sake of a mitzvah. So when it comes to matzah that's done by a machine could very well fall under the category of matzah in the sense that no contact was made with the flour and the water until the time of baking, and the machine mixes it up quickly, puts it through the oven, gone, done, probably in 2 minutes flat or less, right? So it's 100% kosher for Passover, right? The problem is the one thing the machine missed was, I am doing this for the sake of the mitzvah. Now, when is the mitzvah to eat matzah? When? See if you were listening.
Passover.
No.
During the Seder.
During the Seder, exactly. So the entire 8 days of Passover, you're allowed to have machine matzah, which is kosher for Passover, right? Because it didn't mix with water for more than 18 minutes. But when it comes to the Seder, the matzah has to be made with intent. Now, there are some who try to say that if a Jew presses the button on the machine, the presses the go button, that he does that press intentionally. It's a bit of a stretch. So practically anybody who cares about the mitzvah tries to make sure to have handmade shmura matzah for the Seder. Now, the good news is that we only supply that at our Seder here. Also, we make sure to hand out small boxes of shmura matzah. I like to call it the matzah starter pack, because it's what you need for the Seder. And then the rest of Passover, yeah, ideally it's great to have shmura matzah the whole Passover, but if you have the machine matzah, that as long as it says kosher for Passover, because they also make identical ones that are not kosher for Passover, so make sure you check the box. But for the rest of Passover, that's 100% fine. Now, okay, so that's important to know. There's a whole lot about what we don't eat, but it's important to realize when it comes to matzah that it's, first of all, it's actually kosher for Passover, and that ideally it should be done for the sake of the mitzvah, at least for the Seder matzah that we're eating. Now, the Seder takes a long time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, he does.
And you know, if we didn't have to eat, it would go a lot quicker. So we could just cut out the food, and then the Seder will go a lot quicker. But let me try to break it down, because there's 15 steps of the Seder, but but then there are priorities within the Seder. Okay. The most important thing at the Seder is to eat matzah. And as we explained, what's the ideal kind of matzah? So that's the most important thing to do at the Seder, which, by the way, has to be done after nightfall. Okay, because, again, going back to the way it was done in temple times, is the lamb was slaughtered in the afternoon. It was a madhouse of all the lambs coming in and out of the sanctuary. But Then they would roast it at home, and then they would eat it in a group after nightfall. And the Torah says that the Passover lamb should be eaten with matzah and bitter herbs, with horseradish, right? It doesn't say horseradish; it says maror. That's the word that it uses. So actually, even though we're making such an emphasis on the matzah, in temple times the emphasis was the lamb, which was eaten with matzah. So because of that timing, when we eat the matzah, even though we're not eating the lamb, we have to do that after nightfall. So again, going to figure out when
Why
that
do we
is.
have lamb?
What?
How come we don't have lamb?
Because we don't have a temple, and we have to pray that the temple gets rebuilt.
Oh,
So until the temple is rebuilt, we're actually not allowed to have any roasted meat on Passover night. So you can have cooked meat, but roasted meat you don't want to eat because then that could be viewed as a replacement of the Passover lamb, and we don't want to replace the Passover lamb. We want to do it the right way and keep on hoping and praying that happens. But anyways, too many not allows. Let's get back to the Seder. What's important? So we have to matzah, because the Torah says that the Passover lamb should be eaten with matzah and bitter herbs. We have to eat maror. Now, there's actually a dispute in the Talmud whether maror in non-temple times, if that's a biblical obligation or the rabbis obligated us to continue doing so. So be it as it may, we still make a blessing on the maror. So that's clearly something that's very important. So matzah is priority number 1. Maror is priority number 2. And then 4 cups of wine is also, I don't know if that's number 3, and then telling the story is number 4, or telling the story is 3 and 4 cups of wine are number 4. But let's just go with this. 4 cups of wine. What wine is anything that comes from grapes, but it cannot be something that's spoiled. So vinegar does not qualify as wine. Grape juice qualifies as wine. White wine qualifies as wine. However, there is symbolism in having specifically red wine. The reason slips my mind at the moment. It'll come back to me. But it should be grape juice or wine. And you have to have each time a cup that is a revis. A revis is about 3.1 ounces. So we actually get 3.3. This is like 7 ounces.
that's not 7, is it?
200 centiliters. 6.5 ounces. Yeah.
Wow.
So we actually get cups that are 3.3 ounces. So it's the minimum plus a little bit this way. And you can always add more during the meal and drink as to your heart's content.
Get a big
But-
cup.
You could do that, yes. But you're supposed to have the majority of each of those cups. So if you can't drink wine, drink grape juice. If you can't have sulfites, try to find a wine that doesn't have sulfites. There's always some options out there. You're allowed to dilute it a little bit amount with water, if necessary, but it should be a full cup that you drink from, and then drink at least 51% of the cup. Ideally, you should drink a full revius. Yes,
The Becker is typically about that size.
like the one I use on Shabbos, the
Yeah.
silver one.
Yeah.
I think that's actually like a 9 ounce.
Oh.
But the ones that we use on Passover that are like a facade of a silver becher, those are 3.3 ounces.
Okay.
So this way, we enabling everyone to do it in the ideal way, and obviously do our best. And another mitzvah, which is a big part of the Seder, is telling the story of the Exodus, because we have to remember why we're doing this, right? And that's why it's so important to get the children involved, make sure they understand what's going on. And again, the mitzvah is to tell the story, to talk about what we're doing here. Do you have to say the Manishtana? Yeah, of course, you have to follow the Haggadah. I'm not telling anybody that they can cut half the Haggadah out. But the Manishtana was created as a provocation for the children to get involved, and for the continuum of this story to continue to be told is by having children asking questions and awaiting the answers, and thereby it's like a setup for us to actually verbally tell the story of the Exodus. So what that means is it's not just good enough to listen to somebody saying the Haggadah, but actually you should read along. Now, if it's in a setting where somebody else is reading out loud and you don't want to be rude, so you read it quietly. But you should try to actually read through the story of the Exodus. And yes, preferably in English if that's the language you speak. Because what good is it if you don't know what's going on, right? Now there is a custom to lean. That again, these are customs, but the priority is matzah, maror, 4 cups of wine, telling the story. Now it's customary to lean and show other signs of luxury and freedom. So I've seen families where the head of household has like a whole couch to himself, and one of those couches where it's like only an armrest on one side. Have you seen those? It's like a leaning couch. So, but it should be on the left side. So, I think it's actually a health thing that your food goes down better if you're leaning to your left than if you're leaning to your right. Side note: I saw a meme. Ben Shapiro, he says, "There's one time a year that even I lean to the left." Anyways,
We know anything about Ben Shapiro yet?
okay. So basically, even if you forgot, oh, I didn't do this step, I didn't break my matzah. Oh, you gewalt, what should I do? Or I broke my matzah in 4 quarters. It's still Passover. You're not gonna, you're not going to be struck by lightning, and it's okay. Eat the matzah, eat the maror, drink the cups of wine, tell the story, and do your best to follow the Seder as planned. So, what happens if you're stuck somewhere and you don't have a vegetable and you don't have salt water? Okay, it's a problem, but okay, you still had Passover, right? Now, some practical tips. What about kids who need snacks and they need, they don't like the Passover diet?
Sell them to your Gentile neighbors.
There you go. Sell your kids to your Gentile neighbors. I like that. In today's day and age, there's so many kosher for Passover snacks. They basically take matzah meal, reconstruct it, and they can basically make anything out of it in today's day and age. Personally, I don't recommend that. Just on a practical level, it takes away from the experience of Passover if you're just reconstructing everything as if you're living the way you live year round. Also, it's a ton of work. So just live without all these grains for a few days. It's not going to kill you. But for kids who need to have all these things, find snacks that are kosher for Passover and let them be happy. That's the most important. As long as they're not putting actual chametz in their mouths.
For some,
Yeah.
the grains are actually inflammatory, like those who have gluten allergies.
Oh, so that's a very important thing that you mentioned, because what does somebody do if they have a gluten allergy? Do they not eat matzah? The answer is there's only one kind of matzah somebody with a gluten allergy can eat, and that is oat matzah.
Oh.
Potato matzah or pomegranate matzah or any other sort of creative matzah-looking substance is not matzah, because only the 5 things that can become chametz can become matzah. So if it's not wheat, barley, oats, rye, or spelt, it's not matzah. So oats is the only of those 5 things that's not gluten.
So then I like to drink either oat milk or almond milk, so I can continue to drink oat milk.
No, because I highly doubt you'll find oat milk that's certified for Passover.
Well, that might be a problem, yeah.
Yeah, I would be very suspicious if I saw oat milk that was certified for Passover, because it would have to have oats and no water, or it was cooked.
Mm.
I don't know how that's
Al-
physically
almond
possible.
Milk should work.
Almond milk, yeah,
Well, that's.
but
okay.
again, you should look out for kosher for Passover certification, because
Of
you,
course.
you don't know where it was cooked or
Yeah.
produced.
You know how
Yeah.
to make that, right?
I know how to make it. Yeah, I've made my
Yeah.
own.
Yeah, and you can make homemade almond milk, and yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's an important thing, and every year I always, I mean, I'm sure there's more people, but I always hear from one or two people that tell me, "Oh, I'm gluten free. I can't eat matzah." Well, you could eat oat matzah. It's a lot more expensive. It's probably triple or quadruple the price,
Mm.
but it can be done because they're made in smaller quantities and whatnot. So
I thought I saw gluten-free boxes of matzah and Ralph's. It said
Yes.
gluten-free.
and
I
what
didn't
that
look- I
was
didn't look at the
probably potato matzah
Yeah.
or rice matzah.
Oh, which is not
It's not matzah.
to be used, no.
It's you can eat it on Passover as long as it's certified for Passover, but it's not matzah. It's
So
it's a rice cracker.
It's false advertising.
Correct.
Unless it says kosher for Passover on it.
No. Even if it's kosher for Passover,
Oh, yeah.
it's not matzah. You can't use it for the Seder. You can't it's not hamotzi. It's shahakol. It's not.
Mm.
That's why I'm saying rice matzah and pomegranate matzah is the same thing. Just because you took pomegranates and you've shaped them into a square or a circle doesn't make it matzah. You get what I'm saying?
Good.
It sounds great and it's probably delicious.
But not
But-
for Passover.
Yes, for Passover, just not. Don't call it matzah. Call it
Right.
pomegranates.
That's right.
call it zucchini cake. I don't care what you call it. Call it. You can have a carrot pie, and that's fine. You can have a sweet potato pie. You can make a lot of foods that are kosher for Passover.
Mm.
Just matzah is the 5 grains. If it's not one of the 5 grains, then it's not matzah.
Okay.
So rice matzah, potato matzah is just as good as zucchini matzah. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Got it.
Or millet and other grain adjacent foods are not matzah.
Quinoa.
Quinoa also not matzah. I don't think quinoa is kitniot either. I think that's perfectly fine to eat on Passover. And all these things, if they're raw, by the way, you don't need to get it certified for Passover. Buying raw green beans, some green beans are actually, they sell them like frozen, like in Trader Joe's. You can buy frozen green beans. Those are cooked, so that you can't use for Passover. But raw green beans, that's fine.
And cook them.
Raw vegetables, raw fruit, all of that is fine for Passover.
If you can't boil them, can you steam them?
Why
Like
can't
you're-
you boil
like-
them?
Because you have to bring the temperature up. Right?
What do you mean?
If I was to cook the string beans in boiling water,
In a kosher pot, in a kosher for Passover pot.
so I could do that.
Why not?
Okay.
Yeah, you can cook on Passover.
Well, of course, but I thought it was the temperature.
No.
Factor.
No. We were saying the temperature. We were saying was if you have a pot that was used for non-kosher or non-kosher for Passover beforehand, in order to convert it to Passover status,
Oh, it has to be
to
brought to that
cleanse it and to
temperature.
sanitize it for Passover, it has to be brought to a certain temperature.
How about if it's already a kosher pot? Then you don't have to do anything, right?
It depends. If it's kosher for year round, it doesn't make it kosher for Passover. My spaghetti pot I can't use for Passover. I have to boil that or use a different pot
Why?
because the pot was used for spaghetti. And the rule is with kosher that anything that's heated, it absorbs the flavor of the food that's cooked inside of it.
But if it's glass.
So glass,
cookware.
it depends. Sephardim say glass does not absorb anything, and therefore doesn't even need to be kosherized. Ashkenazim say that glass cannot be kosherized because it does absorb, but it cannot be kosherized because it'll break when it's exposed to high temperatures. So practically oven doors which have glass year round, you could self clean the oven, and that suffices because it does reach a level of heat that's considered kosher. For Passover, what I've seen is people would do that, and then they'll also put a sheet of like thick, with heavy duty foil in front of the glass throughout Passover, because as an added level of koshering.
What
Yeah.
about the Seder itself? Like, some people have Seder on the second night.
Correct. That's because, in fact, I'll be having a Seder on the second night, just not here. I'm walking to Pasadena and doing that there.
You're walking?
Yeah, it's a 6 mile walk. It's a quarter of a marathon.
Oh,
Not much.
okay.
You're not gonna be walking in the heat.
We'll see. We'll see how tired I am that night.
Hopefully the morning.
Yeah, no, Chabad of Pasadena is actually doing a Seder both nights. Maybe one day when we're a little more permanently stationed here, we'll do both nights. But for this year, we're only hosting the first night. Yeah.
Stationed in a new location.
Please God. Yes,
Yes.
that's the hope.
I don't want you stationed here to be, unless you convert this whole property.
No. I mean, we're still renting here, so the goal is to lay down roots in a more permanent way.
Exactly.
You know, not to. I mean, we'll have to pay Uncle Sam a little bit more, but a little bit less to. Anyways.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Another thing is. Yeah. Any other questions? I think that's pretty much a good chunk of it. Of course, we can go through the steps of the Seder, but I think most of you are going to be
We'll
here.
be living it next week.
Exactly. So, just for clarity's sake, because we advertise 6:30 as a Seder. Actually, it's a little false advertising. You mentioned before matzah being advertised when it's potatoes and it's not matzah. Actually, the Seder is starting at 7:39 because that's when the 4 cups of wine requirement kicks in, as does the matzah requirement. So, in order to accommodate people who don't like staying up till midnight, I don't know. There's strange people out there who don't like staying up till midnight. Not going to point any fingers. So we're going to do the first course before the Seder. So that's why 6:30 is the first course: fish, salads, etc.
But you won't
And
have
then-
the wine until.
Till 7:39 p.m.
Okay,
Yeah, but
all right.
basically the first course is like 45 minutes, and then we'll do some introductions, explain what's going on, sing some songs, and get going. This way people can sit better with a easier stomach. Well, to those who are online, I say good night. You can listen to this. If you have any questions or refutations, please leave them in the comments. And look forward to